Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 35 of On the Flank. I'm one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey everybody.
And Joe, we're on number 35, and there's a team who ended up losing, no longer undefeated in the regular season. Rest in peace to the New York Excelsior, who lost to the Atlanta Reign, a team that had just lost to the Los Angeles Valiant, the first win for the Valiant. And then, following their win to the NYXL, they lost to the Guangzhou Charge in a hell of a match. But Guangzhou Charge, a team who had lost, I think, 7 or 8 games in a row. So,
Something ridiculous like that, yeah.
yeah, Atlanta, they're a weird team, Joe.
That's fair to say.
Or is it more fair to say New York Excel is a weird team? Because I feel like they never lose to top teams. They just lose to awful teams.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. I mean,
Yeah.
Atlanta has also been weird this stage.
Yeah, they have been. But we'll get more into that. Let's just jump into the week. I guess we can start off with Philly because that was New York XL's first opponent. This is the second time they faced this stage. Philly was actually able to take a map off New York this time, at least. It was a little bit of a closer of a match, which I enjoyed. There was a lot of issues on Twitch, if you were watching on Twitch.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
There were a lot of... this was a very comedic moment for me, watching this match. Specifically Gibraltar, but Philly was like bringing it back, and then on Gibraltar, Philly had an awful attack, and then New York came in, and Philly was actually defending really well, but something was up with the stream on Twitch that it was either really behind or something. But Monty and Doa, they're the casters, they're talking about Philly just had like a really good defense, like 2 minutes are off the clock. They're talking like, wow, Philly might actually have a chance to win this map. And then immediately it skips forward right to New York winning the map. Like New York, not even like, yeah, not even like on the map. Like the camera's on the stage and they're like high-fiving each other and they won. It was just the funniest moment. Everyone on Twitch chat, of course, spamming the question marks. Because it was just like,
next slide, please.
Yes. Next slide, please. That's fantastic. Fantastic spam. But yeah, lots of Twitch. Apparently that those issues weren't on MLG, so it must have just been a Twitch issue. But it was quite hilarious. I would have liked to see Philly win that, but it's fine. I got a chuckle out of it. But yeah, Joe, Philly, this week they lost to New York, but they looked a little bit better. And then they ended up 4-0ing the Houston Outlaws, which is not that impressive. So I guess we'll talk about Philly Fusion here because they're at like an even 500 this stage, 3-3. They have a +1 map differential, so they're not completely even, but they've got one more match ahead of them. And they're gonna want to win it to make stage playoffs. But it's a little 5-2 last stage, Joe. But they've had a little bit tougher of a schedule. New York XL twice. How are you feeling about this team right now? They got the Shock. That's their last game, so that's a rough one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's it is definitely gonna be difficult for them. They've had it's sort of a weird stage. I think underperforming from where lots of Philly fans might have been tracking them for. Obviously, they're sitting currently at I think number 8 in the stage playoffs, just hanging in there with 3-3. But that's definitely not going to last. I think is fair to say. I mean, last week I predicted Dallas was going to go 6-1. At the moment, the best they can do is 5-2, but I think that's still possible enough. And meanwhile, you've got teams like even Shanghai sitting at 6 with 3-2. Chengdu's only played 4 matches this stage. Lots of these other teams that I think 3-3 or even 4-3 is not gonna hold up, and it's looking likely that Philly's going to end the stage with a losing record. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's been weird for them. I think even started right off against their first match of the stage because they played New York twice this stage. So even right the first match of the stage, Philly New York, we knew it was even from then it was going to be sort of weird for them. It's yeah, this is not their stage. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but they've got stuff to work through in this really long mid stage break.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, their losses are to New York twice, and then London. So they're really good teams. And they played it close against London too. So I think Philly is they're still a top team, but they're just not at the tippy top as we're seeing. Um, yeah,
And
Philly.
it's part of the problems just of the way they've got their schedule set up is you can have teams like Guangzhou and Guangzhou in particular, but also teams like Philly that they play these really hot teams twice in a stage, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
that's that's why I'm not. It's another reason I'm not hot on stage playoffs. I mean, we could still have stage playoffs. I'm just not gonna say, hey, that's these are the best 8 teams guaranteed, because some people get unlucky and have awful schedules. But yeah, it's speaking of like when you were saying 4-3 might not even cut it. That's interesting because 4-3 did cut it last stage, but I think it's because overall we had a lot more even records, right?
yeah,
Like
there were just it was like 17 out of the 20 teams in the league um, were 4-3 or worse.
yeah, yeah, we had a very even stage. This time we've got not only like New York XL and Vancouver going like above and beyond record wise. You also have the Shock at 5-0, Gladiators at 6-0, London at 4-0. So you've got you got some dominant teams this stage. So 4-3 is looking like it's going to be harder to cut it, which is the way I like it
That's
sometimes.
yeah,
You,
that's the goal.
yeah, exactly. You like to see some dominant teams for these other teams to try to beat. Speaking of teams we thought were dominant, we'll talk about New York XL now, who did beat Philadelphia Fusion, um, but they lost to the Atlanta Reign on Friday, the first game. I mean, Atlanta looked good, but I think New York looked pretty lost this match. They did not look. They weren't looking like their normal selves. But I mean, I guess the thing I want to talk about is so they lost. They've lost to Seoul, who's a good team. Seoul has a good team, um, but now they've lost to the Atlanta Reign, who, I mean, after the end of the week they lost to Guangzhou. Like I don't. I feel like this isn't a good team. You know, I feel like this isn't an elite team. And although New York is as a team is overall, what are they like 13-1 now or 12-1 or something
Something
like
like that. Yeah,
um
something in one.
yeah 12-1. Although they're like that, they've had a pretty stinking easy schedule. We talked about it last week how the Atlantic is so much worse of a division than the Pacific. And
Yeah,
New York's been facing a bunch of Atlantic chumps so far. I don't think they've even played London yet, and if they did play them last stage, London was not London last stage. Um, and like some of the best teams they've had in the regular season are Philly Fusion, who have not been performing that well, honestly. So they haven't really gotten a big test, um, and in the regular season, and they now losing to Atlanta Reign. Like this team worries me. Like you can't. I get
yeah.
12
It's
and one.
it's
You know.
yeah. It's hard to say. We obviously every week we have a match to go back and watch, and this is the one that I'm picking. New York versus Atlanta. Um, but it's hard to say whether New York was just playing poorly or to what extent Atlanta was stepping it up. Because I think it definitely is true that Atlanta did feel really prepared for the way New York was going to play this. They brought Daco back, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The deal with Daco, but Daco and FRD coming in on sort of an off tank rotation. Um, and yeah, just Atlanta seeming to know, uh, seeming to have done their homework. I think it's fair to say. I mean, even pulling out weird stuff like a Junkrat May defense on Anubis that New York couldn't even um, break until like the very end. Um, or really solid, just really solid play. I mean, coming all the way down to a first point full hold that New York then was able to break and win Rialto uh, on map four. But it was looking super likely even after the third map that Atlanta could have just taken the whole thing. It was interesting. The casters were saying that New York has never lost 4-0 ever
Oh
in the team's
wow.
history. They've lost 3-0 in playoffs when it was like best of five.
Hmm.
But in a four map series, they never lost 4-0 and they still haven't. But anyway, but they were really close this time.
Yeah, they were. I think it's a bit of both here. Like I think Atlanta played really well, but I think New York also didn't play that like to their to New York level. Um,
Yeah,
it's just interesting that sometimes they don't play to New York level because we haven't seen like lately we haven't for some of these teams, but overall the whole season we haven't seen Vancouver not play Vancouver level. Lately, we have not seen San Francisco play not Shock level. Like these people, like Shock's 20-0 on maps. They have not dropped a map this stage. Um, yeah, they're these guys are insane. Like if New York's gonna want to compete with those two, they're gonna have to not lose to someone in the first round of the playoffs, and that's what's seeming to be most likely with this team. Um, yeah, they just seem to be stuck in some sort of I don't know. I don't think they can ever get rid of like this curse where they lose to instead of like losing to the Shock or the Titans, which would be more like someone like them. They lose to someone in the first round of the playoffs, or they lose to the Atlanta Reign. Like it seems like to be a mental block or something. I have no clue what's going on.
yeah, it's kind of bizarre, really. I mean, just to be
Yeah,
just to have weird inconsistency for
because this
basically no reason.
I mean, I'm happy about it. I'm not going to complain about it too much because
Yeah,
they were dominant last season. Like they were by far the best team, and I'm kind of happy that they didn't just like waltz their way through playoffs and win it all. Like that's nice, honestly, because I don't like
yeah,
leagues where there's just like one dominant force who just destroys everyone. I don't think it would be like that this year. Uh, I mean, clearly you have like three I think elite teams, and some people are even arguing the Gladiators are better than the Excelsior now after this week. So maybe Gladiators have joined that tier with Excelsior and Shock and Titans. But yeah, oh yes, I went back to NYXL's schedule. Their toughest games are against Seoul, Philly, and then they did play Shock, but that was way back at the very beginning when the Shock weren't completely cohesive yet, and they 4-0'd Shock. So,
yeah.
and that's the only time they're scheduled to play each other this season too. So, unfortunately, we didn't get the fully confident Shock versus New York XL yet. Uh,
Maybe stage playoffs, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, exactly, Joe. That's the good thing about stage playoffs is we can get some redemption matches here. Speaking of the Shock, let's move on to them because as I mentioned, um, they're 20-0 on maps this
Insane.
stage. Apparently, they broke a map win in a row record, consecutive maps, which was held by Joe. Do you know this? Do you know the answer to
Consecutive
this?
map wins. I mean,
Do you?
if I had
I
to
just
guess,
want
I'd
to.
say New
Yeah.
York, but
Well, I think it would take you a long time to guess. The Houston Outlaws owned that record, 18 maps in a row for the Houston Outlaws. Yeah, someone
when did they manage that?
last season at some point someone mentioned the teams that they played during that run, and they just had a very easy schedule in a row to where they just took 18 maps in a row,
Hmm.
basically. Yeah. So Houston Outlaws. uh, sorry guys, your record's been broken. I'm not a fan of all this
Uh,
record talk, Joe. Honestly.
starting stage one, week two of season one, they 4-0'd Shanghai, Dallas, Florida, LA Gladiators, and then won 3-1 against the Shock.
Okay.
But
So
so more than a year ago, or
yeah,
more than a
the
season
very
ago.
very beginning. I'm not a fan of all this record talk, to be honest, Joe, because we're only in season 2. Like, of course, there are tons of records being broken. Like, this is only the second season, and players are getting better. Records are going to be broken. Why do we talk about records so much? I feel like map records have been talked about so much. There have been so
Yeah,
many records broken, Joe.
yeah. I mean, part of it I think is just the. I feel like I read an article or something that was discussing this, so these aren't really my ideas, but uh, um, I think part of it is just like the meta and the way that things are played. That it's a lot more easy to like build a snowball on 2CP, for example, or to manage a pushing cart with fewer and fewer resources, like in the goat's mirror. That it's I don't know, I think that's part of it. That it's just if you're it's smaller details and smaller factors can make that a lot easier. The way
Interesting.
things are played these days, I guess.
Breaking records is cool, but in the end, a win is a win, no matter how fast you go on that map, Joe.
It's true.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I'm just weirded up by the records because it will be more impressive if someone beats a record in season 10 than it would be after just this season. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool, but I don't think we need to harp on it. So, like, I'm not going to, just because Shaq broke this record, I'm not going to be like, they are the best franchise of all time. This is insane.
Yeah.
But they have to look super good, and it would be honestly this year. It's going to be a lot easier for that specific record to be broken for teams like the Shock because they have had a very easy schedule this stage. So that's going to help. But yeah, Shock, impressive. This team is gelling, and now they traded Sleepy to Washington Justice. They traded um, God, who's the other person they traded? That was before this.
From Shock.
Oh yes, Baby Bay. Baby Bay
Oh
to
yeah. Duh.
so they traded two of their players. They're starting to clean up the team a little bit because I think they've got their starting roster down. They've got who they want to keep down. So they've got rid of Baby Bay Sleepy, and this team is looking like a monster now, Joe. Honestly, they got close to beating Vancouver, but they're looking better and better every week, right?
Oh yeah. It's yeah. I mean, there's not much else you could say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, they 4-0'd Toronto, they 4-0'd Hangzhou Spark, and Joe, I just want to congratulate us once again on our Toronto ranking. Um, we knew they weren't that good, and they aren't.
Yeah, sitting at 16, a hot 1-4 currently.
Yeah, that's not a good stage. And just overall, the expansion teams have been stinking it up this stage. Absolutely not doing that well. I think there's only one expansion team with a winning record this stage. Yeah, and
Ooh,
that's Vancouver, who is 5-0.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to LA Gladiators because this is my favorite team, and now they are dominant, Joe. And I'm in love with Decay, and I'm in love with this team. They're so
Yeah,
much fun to watch too.
yeah,
They've
they were the first team in the league to clinch their stage two playoff spot. They've hit 6-0, um, and what their last match is against Boston. So it's I mean we talked about it last week. Definitely a chance at an undefeated season, and wins against Florida and Chengdu this week is or undefeated stage, not an undefeated season.
I
Um,
wish there were chances of that.
yeah. But yeah, wins against Florida and Chengdu this week. That's the way to do it.
I'm excited to see them in stage playoffs against some very good teams because they've had a little bit of a pushover schedule as well this stage. Boston should be easy. Based off how Boston's playing lately, I think Boston should also be an easy win. So they beat Florida 3-1, and then they beat Chengdu 3-1 in a game where they just played almost every hero. Like they were just this team was flexing alongside Chengdu, who of course loves to play every single hero as well. That was a fun match to watch. Gladiators Chengdu. They were both teams were throwing goats away. They didn't care. They didn't care about goats, which is nice to see. But yeah, LA, they're a really good team too. But I think we both agree easy schedule so far, and we'll see how good they are once we get to stage playoffs and they're playing. Hopefully the Shock, hopefully the Titans, New York or London, or any of these like teams who are looking really good right now. Um, Florida Mayhem, they suck. Next, let's move on.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Thursday finished off the day 4-0 Dallas Fuel lost to Titans. Let's talk about Dallas because they got 4-0 twice this week.
It's true.
To the Titans, to Seoul, and one of those games versus Seoul specifically, we predicted. And I predicted Seoul, you predicted Dallas. I just wanted to throw in that brag real quick. Um, because I went a complete 100% this week on my picks. The key wins for me. I had picks.
After 0-4 last week.
Okay, okay.
I mean, that was the title of the show. We can't.
You didn't have to bring it
But
back up, Joe. God.
you write the titles.
Yeah, I do. I do write the titles. I've screwed myself in this one, and it is written down in history at this point. Everyone can go back, see that I did that. That was a bad choice by me. But this week it's going to be 4-0. John went 4-0 or something like that.
There you go.
Because I did. So I really redeemed myself there. But let's talk Dallas. They look good. Joe, you said they could have a 6-1 stage easily. They
Well, I
can't,
don't know
but I
easily,
think they
but it
could
was definitely
easily
possible.
have a 5-2 stage because I think they've got a pretty easy schedule out of them. But what do you think happened this week to the Dallas Fuel getting 4-0'd twice? Definitely not looking as good as last week.
Yeah, I mean, the San Francisco match, or the not San Francisco, the Vancouver match, that was the one loss that I predicted last week. Just Vancouver's good and they continue to play well, and there's not tons. You could say really that barring some, Atlanta miracle. Um, but yeah, so more interested in Seoul, and they actually had a pretty decent stage, though. I mean, they've only played three matches this stage, which is difficult to track. But a loss against Vancouver, and their other loss was LA Gladiators, but they took them to five maps. Um, but they've still got, so that leaves four matches in week four and week five to sort of decide their fate. And granted, they're playing Vancouver again. Again, weird scheduling stuff. Uh, Houston and Los Angeles Valiants next week in Dallas. Um, but yeah, I think from what we have seen of Seoul, they're looking pretty decent this stage. Again, it hasn't been much, but I'm not entirely. Well, I mean, obviously, I did pick Dallas over Seoul, so I'm, surprised that way. But I'm not like shocked. That Seoul was good. I didn't expect them to come in and win easily. This match, I think it's fair to say. And in fact, they're playing. Is it Seoul Dallas again? No, it's Seoul Houston next week. So never mind. Uh, but yeah, I wasn't, uh, incredibly shocked. I still think those are both really good teams. Obviously, we're going to learn more about Seoul these next coming weeks now that they're actually playing matches. But yeah, you're right. I think Dallas still definitely can go 5-2. Um, I think we're predicting the Dallas Houston match, which will end action on Sunday.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
yes. Um, Seoul. I want to talk about Fleta and Fissure because they haven't been playing, and they're still finding success. They're taking Gladiators to 5 maps. I know they're only 1-2 so far, but obviously they faced two very tough teams, and then that they 4-0 Dallas. Um, Today it came out that Seoul's decision to bench Fissure does not have to do with personality issues or anything like that. Um, it's just they want to play Marvel instead of Fissure.
Who said that is the question.
So let me go back to my Twitter. Halo of Thoughts tweeted it,
uh,
and I believe he asked a coach, spoken to representatives of the Seoul Dynasty regarding the rumors surrounding benching of Fissure, and quote, he's been a very positive teammate, and it's ultimately the coach's call for what roster they want to send out. There has been no behavior issues at all, end quote. So I think people were he just wanted to confirm that it wasn't a behavioral thing because Fisher's an amazing player, and I think people assumed since he's had behavioral issues in the past um, that maybe that was the reason why. Uh, but I think people want to see Fissure and Fleta, right, Joe? Like those two players are electric.
yeah, you would think. I mean, like two of like the biggest like names on the Soul Squad right now. Um, maybe they're gonna show them off on their away matches in Dallas. Maybe they're resting them up for for the stage playoffs that they're hoping to get into with a 5-2 record. Uh, who knows? That's probably not seriously that, uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think we definitely want to see more of them because you're right. They're both super incredibly good. Um, and now that we know that Seoul has some depth to the roster, obviously there's a back and forth there. But yeah, it's their debt. I'm sure they're definitely not out of the picture.
Yeah, I think we'll see them a little bit more here and there. But it seems like Seoul really likes this roster, what they're doing with it, and they're looking good. You can't deny that. So Fleta and if Flynn and Fisher on the bench is what gives them the most success, then I don't know why they wouldn't do that. Um, Unfortunately, the fans won't get a treat there, but it's okay. They're looking better now.
Yeah.
Who should we talk about next? Let's talk about Houston Outlaws really quick because I think they've had a sad stage so far. Um, Last week they lost to Vancouver and they actually looked pretty good, and I think that started a little bit of a down spiral for them here because they looked good and then people were angry at them because they believed they could have had better strategies going into certain maps. Then Flame, their GM, sort of blew up and got really angry at analysts and people for saying that stuff. Jake also got a bit angry, and Flame's going on a bunch of podcasts. He was on Thorin and Monte Cristo's podcast, which I listened to the entire 2 hours of them arguing about that, and then Houston comes into this week, gets 4-0'd by Philadelphia Fusion, and then 3-0'd by the Shanghai Dragons, and not looking good at all, Joe. I mean, they didn't take an entire point in the Shanghai Dragons match until map 4 on Junkertown.
Uh, I think the only saving grace this team has right now is that they've, like Seoul, they've only played 3 matches so far this stage. So we will still see him playing twice in Dallas, and we'll still see him playing twice in Week 5. But whether that's a good thing or not, it depends on your perspective. Um, as a Houston fan or as a Houston player, but yeah, definitely not the way they wanted this to go.
Yeah, they're still figuring things out. I mean, you have people, you have even like Dogman in Watchpoint after the week was over saying that he wanted to see Linkser and Muma on like a different team. Like they need to be. He said they need to be traded. Apparently, I mean, Dogman's super open about everything. This man does not hold back. But
Yeah,
um, Houston,
just because they deserve better.
yeah, I guess so.
Uh,
Because they are talented players. I agree with Dogman that Linkser and Muma are very talented players, and I do wish the Houston like coaching would sort of benefit these players' styles more, because I do think I know Flame like makes good points that, but it's just kind of annoying to me that the teams have the mentality of on some maps, Goats is just better, and there's nothing that can beat it. Like I feel like that's an awful mentality to have instead of experimenting, trying new things. And he might be right. He might be right. Goats might just be better than everything. But do you think seriously everything? We have so many heroes in this game, so many different routes in the map. Like I just feel like there's a way to sort of figure things out. And I think scrims are part of the problem almost. Like I feel like you're worried to try different things out in scrims almost, because it's against another team. So if you do try something out and it's successful, the other team also sees it, and the other team is going to start telling other teams about this thing, and they're going to start running this thing. So I just overall don't like the whole practice. This is a whole another rant, but I don't like that mentality of this goats is superior than anything possible on this map. Instead of saying, hey, why don't we do this route on this map, or we could run this into this, and there's so many options on each map. It's just frustrating to me it was so frustrating for me to hear Flame say that on the podcast. I was like, that's so close-minded. Like I don't want our teams in this league to have that mentality of like, this is what you have to run here, instead of that might be true, but I feel like you shouldn't be saying that, right, Joe? Like I feel like if that is true, like you still shouldn't be have that mentality of like, this is what you have to run. You should have an open mind and say, maybe you could run something else.
yeah, I mean, there's merit to that. At the same time, I know that they know a lot more about it than I do. Uh, as far as trying to make those kinds of calls.
Very true.
And yeah, the experimentation is good, and to be able to do that is valuable. Um, but if you're able to do that, in some more private setting, in scrims or in practice or whatever, and you find success, that's one thing. Um, but I feel like if you don't have success with that, I mean, even with a team like Houston, that they, um, Houston, I guess, isn't the greatest example, but Houston or Chengdu or whoever it is that that might not prefer running compositions like goats, and playing into the strengths of the meta of some of their other opponents. Um, and that it's definitely valuable to learn some of these alternative strategies, and potential counters. But that the only value there is theoretical if you're not able to find the success with it, or if you're not able to execute it well enough to be able to find the success with it. Um, that one of the advantages of goats is how relatively um, I backed myself into a sentence I don't believe in, but I was gonna say how relatively easier it is than some of these others to execute, but I don't think that's the case. But um, that
But
if
I do think goats. I mean, I agree. I honestly agree with that like sentiment almost, because it is easier to run goats, something you've been running for a while now, than to say, okay, let's run an entirely new composition, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
because of the experience, yeah. It's
yeah, exactly.
the actual running, like the skills required. I think it's still higher than some other compositions. But yeah, that now that you had the experience, that's not to call it a fallback because that does sort of cheapen it a little bit. But um, you have to balance the theory with the practice in situations like this.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about esports compared to sports is like is there are changes here. Obviously, after every single stage, there are differences in how the game is played. But you find yourself leaning on those strategies that you had at the beginning of the season almost because that's how that's how things were, and that's what you've been practice on the most. And I feel like that even happened last season a little bit. Like people like there was just one consistent like Widowmaker Tracer were just consistently played throughout the stage, no matter if there was a Mercy as your support or Zen or Ana or Lucio or any of these support heroes who I think that was the biggest change in the meta was Mercy got nerfed. But there I feel like teams were just going back to their strategy from the beginning of the season. So I agree with that. It's easier to just fall back on what you've been practicing the most instead of just trying something else, especially in like a 28 game season where every like mostly every win matters here. You have to get at least 12th place. Like is it worth the risk sometimes? Um, I think it's more worth the risk now, and it just builds up almost too because it's more worth the risk for like teams like Vancouver and New York who have really good records. They can easily risk trying new things, which just makes them better teams in the end, which is kind of crazy. Um, it's like a snowball. It's like goats comp via the standings. It's a snowball. But yeah, that's a nice little conversation there. Are there any other teams you want to talk about, Joe? Um,
Let's
Before
see.
we move
Valiant
on
got a
to
win.
yes, Valiant
They
did get a
play
win.
twice
They
at Dallas and once in week 5. Um, they still
see
got a
they
giant hole to dig out of.
yeah, but they could make stage playoffs. They're 2-2.
It's true.
Yeah, it's possible.
So it'll take some work and probably 3 more wins.
Yes.
Let's see who are they playing. They're playing Seoul and Dallas next week, so it'll be hard
Yeah.
work and Chengdu in week 5.
Yeah. That
But
those are
it
some hard
is
teams.
theoretically possible.
Yes, it is. Chengdu still looking average. Losing 3-1 to LA. Um, but they've had some harder matches this stage, and they still look like a very good team and they have super skilled players. Joe, that's all I recognize about their team every time I watch them play. Jinmu on Doomfist at one point in that LA
Phew.
Gladiators match,
Spicy.
he got like 8 kills in a row or something for his team. Like he was just that was on Hanamura. That he looked very
Uh,
good. He's a great he's a great DPS player.
DC is
Uh,
still winless.
yeah, of course.
Guangzhou Hangzhou went
That
all
was
the
a
way to
good
map
match.
5.
That was the only map 5 this past week.
Wow, it's true.
Yeah, it was kind of a. I mean, we've had a lot of 4 Overwatch here
Yeah.
lately, but hopefully we get a really good Dallas weekend going. But yeah, Hangzhou's looking a little better this stage. I think they beat Guangzhou here 3-2. It was a close one. They ended up getting forward by Shock though, so
Yeah.
nothing close there.
And then I think the last match is maybe you want to talk about it. I know it's on your list
Yeah, yeah.
of
This is
repeaters.
the the last match was the one I would like you guys to rewatch because Atlanta versus Guangzhou. I think this was a great match, but they also beat a record. Speaking of records, and their record was the most points taken in a map, and or in a match. I mean, not a map,
Yeah.
but they
Serious.
yes, a series. Hanamura was 7-6. Atlanta Reign won that one, and Kings Row was 8-7. 7-6 on Hanamura is like more realistic, but 8-7 on Kings Row. They took all 3 points twice on that map on a payload map or a hybrid. but on payload, that's pretty crazy. And then Guangzhou 3-0'd on Rialto and 2-0'd on Busan. So those weren't as high scoring, but those two maps were super exciting to watch, super offensive Overwatch. So I would go back and watch this one for sure. And then right after the game, Dogman gets a bowl cut on Watchpoint if you want to watch that.
It's true. Although it wasn't quite what I expected. It could have been a
Yeah,
lot worse, I think, for him.
yeah, I agree. His bowl cut does not look that bad. It really doesn't.
All the desk people were like hyping it up. They're like, "Oh, it's so terrible," but it wasn't really.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And the picture after is like, it looks just like his normal haircut. Honestly, like it doesn't look that bad. He could easily like gel that up and style it to like look fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't that bad, but the match was fun. You want
Oh yeah.
to talk MVPs?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's basically the week of matches, but we also always do pick MVPs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so mine this week is from Atlanta's upset of New York. And while Atlanta obviously did lose again later in the week, it's good enough to give Erster from the Atlanta Reign my MVP pick. Uh, not only because of the sweep, I think he got player of the match. That match against New York, and then was looking pretty good against Guangzhou too. Obviously playing lots of Brig, you're don't have tons of flexibility, uh, really showing up and getting the things done he needed to do.
Yeah, he's a good break. My MVP of the week is Toby, none other than the Boop God himself. He also, God, everyone just breaking records. See how unspecial this is? He
Yeah.
also broke a record for most boops on Eichenwald, or maybe it was in the entire match.
Um, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like both because because he was like he had like 7 environmental kills just on Eichenwald and then like
Yeah,
9 in the series or something.
yeah, it was that. So even more records broken. He broke the record on Eichenwald, and he broke the overall match record for environmental kills. He was the Boop God. He definitely. This was against Dallas, by the way. He definitely did really well. Toby, you deserve this. I should give it to. I don't think Lucio players have gotten love on our MVPs of the week, Joe. So
Not
Toby
tons, I don't think.
Toby definitely deserves some. Let's quickly go over stage playoffs before we move on. Stage playoff standings, that is. You still got LA Gladiators at top with 6-0. San Francisco and Vancouver are both 5-0. New York's now 5-1. London's in fifth at 4-0. You got Shanghai at 3-2, which they're very close to clinching their first ever stage playoffs, Joe. That's a
It's
team to be
crazy.
thinking about. But that's pretty crazy. And then the only team who hasn't been in stage playoffs from the original teams will be the Florida Mayhem, who definitely will not be in stage playoffs. They're 0-6 this stage.
It's true. Stage
They're,
3, they're gonna turn up.
yes. I think some people are calling for, because Mayhem Academy is really good right now. They're the best team. They just beat Fusion University.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Everyone is calling for them to just fully replace their roster with Mayhem Academy. So, uh, and they've got some good players on that team. So I tend to agree. Uh, Chengdu is at 7 at 2-2, and then Philadelphia Fusion's 3-3 at number 8. You have some 2-2 teams right outside: Paris Eternal, Los Angeles Valiant, Dallas Fuel, and Hangzhou Spark, all right outside that eighth place spot. So they all seem to have a chance. But you also have Seoul Dynasty, who have only played 3 games at 1-2, right out there. And then the rest of the list seems like teams who probably won't make it, because you have like Atlanta at 2-4, Toronto at 1-4, Boston's at 2-3, so they're going to need a little bit of a miracle to make it again.
Yeah. Because like we were saying, even 4 and 3 is looking sketchy
Yeah.
about whether they can make the
Oh yeah,
top 8 or not.
because it seems like there's going to be a lot of like at least 5-2 teams making it here, because London's like 4-0, and they're in fifth. So Yeah, it's not looking good. As far as like regular season standings go, London is skyrocketing up the standings with a fantastic stage here. They're in the top six now. They're actually tied with Philly for fifth, even though Philly's 8-5 and they're 7-4. Um, they played two less matches than Philly. And then you have top four is Titans, Excelsior, Shock, Gladiators. Gladiators are very close to Shock actually. They only have one more loss, 9-4, and Shock's 9-3. And then in like the wild card play in, you would have the Dallas Fuel, Seoul Dynasty, Shanghai Dragons, Toronto Defiant, Boston Uprising, and Atlanta Reign. But it seems like Atlanta Reign, Toronto Defiant are trending out of those spots, kind of. More
Yeah,
more so Toronto Defiant. Um,
potentially Chengdu coming up, maybe.
Potentially Chengdu. You got Paris out there on the outside. Hangzhou's looking better and better as time goes on here, so maybe them. I'm still looking at honestly, like I still think Valiant has some talent here. I'm still looking at them to climb up, but yeah, this is going to be the week, right? They've got a very tough schedule ahead of them. So
Yeah.
these last games are going to be the ones where we're like, okay, can Valiant actually compete? But yeah, those are a brief overview of the standings. We've got some patch released because archives came out
It's true.
last week. Yes, a nice little storm rising event with a new map. Joe, do you want to take over the patch? It's not that big, but do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, that works. Yeah, so 1.35 is live currently and actually has been for like a week now. Um, Storm Rising event is live. You can go in and play as Winston, Mercy, Genji, Tracer, um, and kill a bunch of Onyx. Pretty much just like the Retribution event, except on a new map, which is Havana. So actually skip ahead to that because Havana is now out on the PTR. It's
Hmm.
update 1.35.1. Doesn't actually count as 1.36 because it's just the map. There aren't any other changes, at least currently.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's another escort map. Since there are now 5 maps of every type, uh, they've gone back to escort to add an additional one. Um, yeah, not much to say about it. It feels like simultaneously really short and really long. Uh, we'll have to see how it gets played. Also, I'm kind of disappointed that the storm effects aren't in it
Yeah.
for like regular matches, but what can you do?
I'm sure like pro players would complain about like someone would be like it's hard to see and I'm a pro player and I want to see.
Yeah, probably. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Hmm.
But back to the live patch. All these changes are currently live. Um, and it actually is not any changes from when 1.35 was on the PTR. But so Junkrat's projectile speed increased, grenades bounce less, explode sooner. That's live currently, as is the Reaper Shadow Step buff. He can do a bunch of fun stuff with that now. He also can't Shadow Step out of Grav or out of a Junkrat trap, which they didn't explicitly say on the PTR. I don't know if that's a change from when it was there or not. Symmetric Teleporter and the Shadow Step interactions with railings are also changed, and that's basically it. You can also change your career profile so that your current group can view it only.
Hmm.
So maybe if you have a private profile, but you're uh, you know, but if that appeals to you, that's a little bit more freedom for you to share your career profile without going all the way public. But that's basically it. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
bug fixes and stuff too, but yeah.
Yeah. This was the old railings patch. I remember when this came on the PTR. Maybe we have a big break between stage 2 and 3, so I feel like we'll get maybe one more sort of nerf and buff patch before then. Maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully they can put. It seems a little bit ambitious. I was gonna say hopefully they can put Havana in stage 3. I suppose it's not out of the question, but
Yeah,
it would
possibly. I mean,
certainly be ambitious.
Paris came out pretty quickly after it was released. So our Paris came onto Overwatch League pretty quickly after it was released. But this would be even closer. So that'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
And I
Um,
guess Stage 3 doesn't start till like mid-June, so or something ridiculous like that. It's not quite that long, but
yeah. When does this end? This ends like this week, then next week. So this ends like mid-May,
yeah,
and
so
then
Stage 3 starts the first full week of June on
okay.
June
So the
6th.
All Star Weekend's gonna be like okay. All Star Weekend's gonna be like the 24th, 25th, right, or something like that. Do they have the dates? They must have the dates for that out because there's voting, right?
Yeah, you
Oh,
can buy tickets for it.
oh
I
yeah.
forget I forget when it is, but yeah. The dates are out.
Or no, May 15th. It is. It's May 15th. So it's right
Oh, there you go.
after. It's literally the weekend after the playoffs, stage
Oh,
playoffs, stage two playoffs.
so that's kind of nice though,
Yeah,
because
because then
then get it out of the way.
they'll get a 3 week break there, or a
And
two
then
week.
there's the contenders showdown.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's nice. So us the viewers don't get a break, but the players do.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. I think like the LCS. Um, or wait, what the hell? What is going on my? I was in the wrong place on my calendar. That's embarrassing.
Uh,
But I think the League of Legends also starts their split at the same time this stage starts. So, some more, a more a fun weekend for esports.
yeah.
Um, what else? Let's see. Daco, behavioral issues. That's why he got benched. Apparently, that is
Which
why he was not
people
playing as much.
which people sort of suspected, but
Yeah,
it was kind of
because
confirmed.
because he's a good player. He's a very good player. So it's like a Fissure situation too. Like people just would expect that because Fissure's so good. Like why would he be benched unless he's being a dick to his teammates or something? But Daco clearly, I mean, the team looked better already when uh, when he was back in this week. So those behavioral issues are they're gonna have to stop, right, Joe? Because this team is better clearly with the Daco on it. They ended up beating New York. They lost the second game, of course, but they looked a lot better with Daco in the lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't say it was all him, I'm sure, but yeah, even just being able to specialize a little bit between Daco and FRD, who apparently is called Fried. Actually, I forget who was
Yeah,
saying that.
I read that on Liquipedia, and I was like, no one's calling him this.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
None of the casters or anything are calling him Fried, so I don't know.
yeah,
But between those two off tanks, even just to have the flexibility for Atlanta is good.
yeah,
And that was just an internal punishment too, apparently,
okay.
for Daco rather than
Was
like
there
from the league or
sanctioned?
something. So
Yeah. Yeah. So luckily, I mean, I think that also shows some. I like when organizations do stuff like this because it shows that they're on top of it, and they're making sure that they have no internal issues. They don't want it to get to like an XQC situation or anything like that where their players being punished by the league alongside them. They don't clearly. They don't like that. But yeah, Daco looking good, making Atlanta look a little bit better. I'm a little more confident in Atlanta after this week for sure with him back in. So hopefully he doesn't have any more problems. Sleepy got traded to Washington Justice. We talked about this a little bit earlier.
and
The
he's playing
man,
already.
oh yeah, I mean he's a great player. I mean just sitting here behind Violet the whole season basically. And he is on our fantasy team too, so that's big for us, Joe, because he will be getting playing time now.
That's helpful. How are we doing on that? I don't even know.
I did not check it last week, which is unfortunate. But I'll get on there while you tell me how good of a move this is for Washington.
I mean, considering how poorly Washington's doing right now, pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not really much else to say. I mean, eventually they'll just form a team out of like all of the rejects, or not rejects, but like the bench players from all the other teams. Um, and it might be an improvement,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is kind of harsh, but I mean, when you got a team that's like 2-12, that's kind of what you gotta go for.
Yeah, I would agree. Oh God, we have Fleta who is being benched. That's not nice. But we're 3-5
Maybe
right
he'll
now.
go to Washington.
Yeah, yeah, and then we just get all our players to go to Washington. Who could we play over? We'll play Color Hex over Fleta because Color Hex plays all the time.
There you go.
But yeah, we're 3-5 in seventh place. So not
So
bad
not great.
for, but not bad for me not checking like the past 2 weeks. So
That's how many are in the league?
10.
Oh, yeah, so that's not terrible.
No, not that bad. But I did not check for the past 2 weeks. So it's good that we're still in it, and we won last week. So
Ooh, nice.
I am trying to set my lineup right now. I need to like see. I wish I could see like how good everybody was on our team, so I could easily do this. But it's gonna take more effort for me, so I shouldn't do this during the podcast. Uh, let's move on to this week, which I'm so excited for. We get our first homestand. The people are hashtagging first home match ever.
It's
It's
true.
it's it's happening, Joe, in Dallas, and it's a sold out crowd of like 4,500 people. I'm so excited. 2 days, and there's some good matches in here too, Joe. There are some good matches.
It's true. We just got the 8 teams that are playing, so that means they'll each play twice. So if you're a fan of Paris, Hangzhou, Houston, LA Valiant, Dallas, Seoul, Chengdu, or London, this is your weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are Seoul, Dallas, Chengdu, London are all considered, I believe, right now in people's power rankings, like at least in like at the end of the season in the wild card play in. I think all four of those teams are good, top level teams who could definitely have winning records at the end of it. I think Valiant's on the rise this stage a little bit. I think this is their test because they've got new coaching, they've got Custa in. I think Hangzhou's on the rise even. Paris and Houston not so much, but we do get to see that Paris London rematch, which I don't think is going to be close this time. So let's get into that, Joe, because we're predicting Paris London, and there's my prediction already. I'm thinking London here. I think London easily gets revenge this time. London's looked way better since that first that was their second match since their second match of the season. When they got beat by Paris, and Paris was like, "We're the real European team."
Yeah, it's really hard to bet against London this stage, or in lots of cases to bet for Paris, just unfortunately. But uh, yeah, London is definitely also my pick here. Yeah, I think some of these are going to be more straightforward than others, but we'll do what we can because there's
Yeah,
only 8 matches this week at all, only 2 days.
yeah,
This
we'll
is this
try
is the short
to.
weekend stage too.
Yeah, we'll try our best to maybe have different picks on at least one.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate. The one time I forced myself to do that, I did not enjoy that when I had to pick Paris beating who Dallas maybe.
I don't
Uh,
know.
I think so. I had to pick Paris beating Dallas one week, and I didn't like that because I should have just went back and picked Valiant to beat Atlanta, which they ended up doing. So very unfortunate for me. Um, but yeah, let's move on to the next one. Hangzhou Spark versus Chengdu Hunters. I do think this is going to be a close one, honestly. Um,
I think it should. I think we
yeah,
sort of alluded to this match maybe last week's show as like these are like the two good Chinese teams. Uh, because I mean we have or no it was
no, it's
sorry that was
Shanghai.
Shanghai and
Yeah,
Chengdu. I think probably Hangzhou's third though.
yeah.
Is fair to say at
Well,
least at this point.
yeah, because they beat Guangzhou, so
Yeah.
they've earned it.
Yeah.
But
Um, yeah.
this one's so tough for me, Joe. You have to pick first here, because
Okay,
I
so yeah, I'm going with Chengdu in this one. I mean, their other match this week is going to be against where'd he go? London. So that'll be a little bit harder. Um, but I feel like this is a team that's gonna the way that they play. This might not be a good justification, but the way that they play and like to shake things up already, I think a change of venue and the whole all of the newness of everything here on this Dallas homestand weekend is who knows, maybe it'll work in their favor.
Okay, I'm gonna go Hangzhou here. I think they're pulling out some wins that maybe they shouldn't. I think they're looking better. I think they're sneaking up on us here. I'm taking Hangzhou. They're definitely not elite yet, but I think they can pull off one against Chengdu. Give me Hangzhou.
There we go. There's
Yeah,
a difference,
there
if nothing
there
else.
is there's our difference. I don't know if we'll have differences on these next two, which are going to be the final two matches to finish off the weekend. The first one is Seoul Dynasty versus Los Angeles Valiant. Two OG teams. These are two like top Pacific teams from last season. So this is a historic battle. The next one's going to be a historic battle too. But do you think LA Valiant could possibly pull off a major upset here and beat Seoul, Joe?
I'm not calling it. We saw we were talking about how well how good Seoul is looking, even on this sort of weird entrance they've had into stage two, and the potential they have, I think, has definitely got to start with this match against LA Valiant.
Yeah, I think if LA Valiant wins a match this weekend, it's going to be against Dallas, not Seoul. I'm taking Seoul. I think Seoul has an easy 2-0 this weekend. Houston and LA. So Seoul, we'll finally get to see some matches out of them. But Seoul's looking good this season. So
For sure.
I think Valiant's looking better, but them beating Seoul, that's a stretch there. And then, of course, the schedulers are amazing and schedule us a fantastic rivalry match. And this is the only time it's going to be played this season, unless we see them in stage playoffs, which I doubt we'll see Houston in stage playoffs ever. But Houston versus Dallas, the Houston Dallas, the Texas rivalry, which was so fantastic last season. Houston won every single matchup last season. 4-0. They 4-0 to Dallas in the season. Um, Dallas has yet to beat Houston ever. Is this it, Joe? They're at
Yeah,
home.
I mean, you
There's
got to think that was also, so far every time was the season one Dallas. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Houston hasn't changed hardly at all, other than I guess the addition of Dante. Um, and then obviously Dallas shaking things up a lot from season one to season two. Um, plus playing at home in quote unquote the Dallas arena. I mean, it's really hard for me to pick against Dallas. Plus my 6-1 comment from last week that I guess I'm changing to a 5-2 comment this week. Um, that yeah, I think I'm picking Dallas for this matchup here. It's definitely going to be a spicy one here at the end of this weekend.
God, I'm so excited for home matches next season. I am so excited. Um, Dallas is there's gonna be magic in the air during this match. I don't know if it'll be close. I think Dallas is gonna come out and just whoop this team. Like they've gotten beaten by Houston too much. They are at home. Everyone's gonna be hating on the Houston Outlaws. I mean, I think people are like kind of like Houston's pretty close to Dallas relatively. Like I feel like there are going to be some Houston fans there,
It's
honestly,
true. It's true.
because this is Houston doesn't get a home game. Like they're gonna come out to Dallas to watch this. They want to. This is as close as a match has gotten to Houston so far. Besides, like New York's still pretty far from Houston compared to LA as well. So Houston would love to be at this match. So there will be Houston fans, but I think it's going to be majority Dallas fans. I think Dallas is easily going to take this one. I think it's going to be. I do not see Houston taking it. They look much worse this season, and Dallas is at home. I mean, come on, you can't pick against Dallas here.
Yeah.
Dallas picks up their first win against Houston. That's going to be a great matchup. I'm so excited for this weekend just to see what it's like. I'm expecting some technical difficulties here and there, but we'll get our first homestand. And then the tickets for Atlanta homestand have also began to be sold. It's at like a little theater in it, or a theater, not little, but just a theater in Atlanta where they would have musicals play, stuff like that. Whereas the Dallas one's seemingly more of like an esports type arena, like it's
Yeah.
a mini like basketball arena or hockey arena
Yeah, they
almost.
put there's like a picture on Reddit or something you can go look at. It's gonna be
It
good.
was it was a very blurry pick, but
It's true.
uh, but yeah, we'll see it. We'll see it this weekend, of course. I'm interested to see what the setup's going to be like. But it will be sold out. I know it's going to be hype. God, I'm so excited for these home matches. They're going to be so sick. Yeah, that's. I think. Do you have anything else to talk about, Joe?
I
Is
don't think
is
so. I mean, it's other than just being excited.
yeah, I'm so excited. But yeah, that's our show. That's episode number 35 of On the Flank. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to follow us on social media, our personal Twitter accounts, mine is at JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. That's INC. Our show has a Twitter account at On the Flank Show. And we have an email, ontheflankshow@gmail.com. You can email us, tweet at us, any topic, any questions you would like us to answer here on the podcast. Of course, you are listening to this in one way, but if you want to listen to it in a different way, you can go to ontheflank.podbean.com. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is John George, easiest to find via my Twitter account. If you're an Apple or an iPhone user, you can go on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. If you're an Android user, you can use Spotify, Google Play. Thank you guys for listening, and you definitely got to check out that Dallas homestand this weekend. It's going to be hype.